Today, we're gonna learn the easiest way to create a depth fade subshader in Unity to create this kind of beautiful water shader. What is depth fade subshader? Depth fade subshader is what calculates the depth of our water or to control how deep the water is in this case. So, how can we make that? Let's find out. First of all, my voice might sound a bit different in this video because I have a sore throat. Anyway, I already have a Unity scene open here. Don't worry about all the things imported into my project. You don't need anything to create the subshader. I have these assets imported just to showcase the shader. What I did was I created a water lit shader and created a material from it and applied it to a plane. The shader doesn't have anything. To create a subshader, we're gonna right click on our assets folder, go to create shader graph, subshader. We're gonna call it depth fade. Remember that what you name your subshader here is the name that you'll find it when using the subshader in a shader. Let's open the shader. This is what it looks like. Let's bring the search bar by pressing space and add a scene depth node. Now, why do we need a scene depth node? Because we need to calculate the depth of our scene. Currently the sampler is linear, but we're gonna change it to eye because we want to calculate the scene depth from our eye perspective. Then we'll add a screen position node and set its mode to raw. This will get the position of each vertices. We'll subtract the screen position from our scene depth. So let's hook up the output of our scene depth node to a subtract node. But we don't need the whole output of our screen position node. We only need the coordinates of the vertices. So in order to get that, let's hook the output to a split node and get the alpha or the A channel and hook it up to the B input of the subtract node. Now we need some way to control the depth of our water. So after subtracting, we divide it. Now we can put any value here or we can add a custom property to change it in the inspector. So I'm gonna create a float called distance and hook it up to the B input of our divide node. Now we need to clamp the value between 0 and 1. So for that we can use a saturate node. You can also use a clamp node. Both of these serve the same purpose here. But for simplicity, I'm gonna use the saturate node which clamps the value between 0 and 1. Now let's hook it up to the output. We have our depth fade subshader here. To see what depth fade does, I'm gonna open the water shader and add the depth fade. As you can see, just by searching, I can find it in the subshader category. Note that you don't have to do this part. You already have the depth fade subshader. I'm just showing you what it does. So after that, I'm gonna create a float property called depth and hook it up to the distance input. Now let's save the shader and go back to Unity. Now you might think this doesn't change anything, but that's because we don't have any depth. If I increase the depth value, as you can see, the black starts to appear. The white part is the deep water and the gray and black parts are the shallow water. Just to show you how this will look in actual water, I added the depth fade to my previous video on water shader with foam. You can watch this video to see how I use the depth fade for our foam. But as you can see, this is the final result and this is exactly the same water that I created in my last video. But depth fade just makes things easier to work with. If you don't want to make the depth fade yourself, I'll have a link in the description where you can download the depth fade subshader. That's it for this video. If you want to learn how I created this water with foam, watch this video. And I will see you in the next video. Take care. Goodbye.